1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, really? Yeah. And it's getting everybody there early. You know, you'd like to get around 5. Oh, because I mean, they'll be still in jail, they're not concerned.
Good to see you, everybody. It was a nice atmosphere. I think it smells a little bit of a spring. And we can see that we're cheering up a little bit, and it's a good thing to see the sun. It was a nice day today, so that's great. I'm glad to be with you. So far, so good. It's Wednesday night, and we will carry on until mid-May or towards the end of May. So that's basically what is planned. There is a few sessions left, and I'm going to try to leave you in a place where it makes sense, not in the middle of somewhere. Try to finish a point, and then in September, we will come back. And I'm expecting that at the end of November of 2022, we will be close to the end, actually. So we're doing very good, and we are on page 20 of 27 pages of outline. And I left you last week in the middle of the announcement of the coming of Cyrus in this part, and I think I did out of 9 statements that I was supposed to look at. Where did I leave you? Statement number 5? 6, that's beautiful. I will repeat them quickly, and then we will move on. The session might be slightly shorter. I want to go back home. I've spent my day here from the morning preparing different things and so on, but Olga is very sick. With the cold, a bad one this time. So we all got it, but she got it quite solid on top of the thing that belongs to women and stuff, the period and so on, all added up together. So it made it worse a little bit. So you can pray for her. We'll pray for her right now. She's okay right now. The baby will be home, thanks to Sylvie's daughter, Ghislaine, that is looked after Sophia to give her a break a little bit. We might sleep and so on. So, page 20 of 27, chapter 44 of your outline, place your fingers in verses 24 to 28. Tonight should be quite interesting to go through. Let's take our silent time and we move on in our studies, beloved. Father of grace, I want to give you thanks for the privilege that we still have in this country to be able to study these things freely. For some countries of the persecuted church, they cannot do it. In such a freedom, I mean. So, Father, thank you for the privilege that we have. Help us not to take it for granted, and continue to speak to our hearts. You are immense. You are not in the universe, Father. The universe is in you. You transcend everything. Even the measurements of the heavens in totality are small in your sight. However, we've been found, and we are happy about it, to sustain a relationship with the only existing God. All the other gods are false gods, the fruit of the imagination of man and the power of the occult. Thank you for the protection that we have against it, Father. We glorify your name and teach us, Father, to remember the things that we need to, and we give you praise and honor in Jesus' name. Amen. Last week we were in small a at the bottom of the page, the deliverance by Cyrus the Great. It's a chunk here. We'll carry on tonight. We won't finish it tonight, and we have been looking at the announcement of the coming of Cyrus. 150 years prior, basically. After the time of Isaiah, I mean here. And I told you last week that in the Hebrew text from 24 to 28, it's one sentence in the Hebrew language, one of the longest sentences in the Hebrew Bible. Okay? And then we have seen 2 statements that he is basically, the statement is by Jehovah in verse 1, thus says the Lord, type of thing. And he is also the maker of the heavens and the earth in 44:28. In fact, chapter 44:24. Thus says Jehovah, your Redeemer, the one who formed you. I am Jehovah and the maker of all things. And then I said to you that secondly, we move on with 9 statements describing the work of God of course, using Cyrus as an instrument. Number 1 was in 24. The one who formed Israel is the one who created that nation. It is review. Number 2, also in verse 24, is the one that stretched the universe, expanded the universe. Everything that is in it, nothing comes out of his divine standard and will. Number 3 is in verse 24 also, and spreading out the earth all alone. He is the creator of the earth, the only planet which can have human being on it. The planet is an habitation for mankind, and I don't believe in any form of other lives in different planets. I dismiss that, otherwise we would have known about this. Fourthly, verse 25 here, let me read, causing the omens of boasters to fail, liars to fail, making fools out of diviners, causing wise men to draw back, and turning their knowledge into foolishness. Number 4 was the fact that he is the frustrator of the occult. He is the one that frustrates the occult. He reigns over them and he can limit them. In the ASV of 1901, Debbie, do you have the word liars in verse 25 somewhere? Somewhere? Liars? You don't have that word? Babblers or babblers? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You have liars?
Yeah.
Good translation. He makes diviner mad, still in number 4 here. Because the diviners attempt to find out the future by the power of the occult. Avoid that completely. It's part of number 25, so he frustrates their plan. The 5th one in verse 25, again, he is the frustrator of the wise and their counsel. That's why I was explaining to you that some translation, they fell backward, because he is their judgment also. Everything that falls backward is a sign of judgment. It was part of number 5, 25c. And then he turns wise men backward. And then number 6, that's where we finished, Debbie? Okay. He is the confirmer of the prophet. In verse 26, confirming the word of his servant. Circle his servant. I will slow down now. His servant refers to Isaiah the prophet. And in verse 26, always under number 6 here, and performing the purpose of his messengers. And messengers is all the other prophets that wrote books and so on. And I probably left you with the statement that in the case of the gods, small g of the Babylon, their lies are not coming to pass, but everything that the prophets of the Bible do prophesy will and did also come to pass, except for those prophecies that we are still working on, waiting for. Right now you have no notes. Point number 7 out of 9, verse 26, also, it basically is the one who prophesied the return from Babylon. It is I, okay, so it's 26b if you want to. It is I who says to Jerusalem, she shall be inhabited, and of the cities of Judah they shall be built, and I will raise up her ruins again. So these are prophecies concerning the return from Babylon in the context. Because the Babylonian captivity comes to an end with Cyrus. In verse 26c, in 27 rather, here, he is the one, number 8, he is the one who removes the obstacle. Look at verse 27. It is I who says to the depths of the sea, be dried up. Circle be dried up. And put in your notes that he is the one who removes the obstacle. And in verse 27, I ask you to circle be dried up because it's a reference to the Red Sea. It's a reference to the Red Sea, and it's a reference to the Exodus. When the people came out of Egypt, God removed all kinds of obstacles, and He will do the same for the return from Babylon, which is in a complete different direction, but He is the remover of obstacles. And it counts for your life also. So simply put, as in the Exodus, in the same way, He will remove the obstacle from the return from Babylon to Jerusalem. He is the obstacle remover. And that's why we need to constantly pray in our hearts that may God remove the obstacles that keeps us from receiving from Him, the hindrances. Okay? And sometimes we need to be sharp in thinking, meaning I give up this. I need to attend at least a Bible study a week to continue our growth, and sometimes He will be the one removing obstacles and so on. It's just an application for daily life right now. The 9 and last, it's a long point, just to make everything that you say until we're done here. The 9 is the one that names the coming deliverer. Verse 28, it is I who says to Cyrus, circle Cyrus, he is my shepherd, circle shepherd, and he will perform all my desire. And he declares of Jerusalem, she will be built, and of the temple your foundation will be laid. I have a few things to say here. It's 9 and last concerning the announcement of the coming of Cyrus. God is the one who names him by name. He's not even born yet. And that is a strong statement for predestination and for ordination. This is very strong. He names the person 150 years down the road. Alan.
Were you just saying that Cyrus hasn't even been born yet?
He's not born yet. Because that prophecy comes 150 years prior to his coming. His coming is Cyrus. He's not in the womb yet. His parents did not even intending to have him yet. That's how sharp are the prophecies of the Scriptures. And I will show you something in a moment out of that book. You know that book, eh? You don't know, you cannot, nobody read it. I never read it in totality. That's Josephus. I will show you something in a moment of time. Okay? He named the very Persian monarch. He named the very Persian monarch that will end the Babylonian captivity. That's the God you serve. What it is for Him to know your name, Alan, prior to the foundation of the earth, and to bring to pass what He has started with you. There is no need to allegorize these things. Okay? That's was my prayer at the beginning of the session tonight. Big as we cannot fathom. When you look at this, and if you extend the picture to the right, and you expand the picture to the right and to the left and up and down as much as you can, the statement makes sense. God is in the universe. People will say amen to that, but it's no go. The universe is in Him because He transcends it. If my book here is the universe here, and you try to make it fit, we take God and we make it fit in it. It's not going to work. An arm or a small finger will pop out. The head will come out here. And you push hard and you push the head in and bang, a leg come out here. It cannot fit in it. This book is the universe and God cannot fit in this. But how can we grasp it? It's not graspable. But that's, and can you imagine if you have the planet Earth here somewhere, you can see it, and that's the third one, and we are on it, and in comparison to the size of it, we're like an ant. But the care, the love, the importance of your choice, you are exceedingly important and of great value to his sight, to the point that it cost him his son to buy you. But who can fathom that? He is my shepherd, verse 28. Cyrus is going to perform the shepherd's duty, to guide the people. He will be a shepherd to Israel. An unbeliever. He's an unbeliever, Cyrus. We will see that later. Not only he will give them the right to go back to Jerusalem, but he will also provide for them to do so. That's huge. Not only he will decide you go back and build, but he will provide for them. Why? You have the answer in verse 28b. And he will perform all my desires. The desire of God is for Christ to come. They need to build a temple, and so on and so forth. I'm just going to look in case of emergency. Hello. I'm in the office in classroom. I'm going to press 9 and you should be able to enter. Are you in? Yeah, do you see the entrance? That's because Olga is still in bed, so I did well by answering. She might call back. I apologize. My apology for this here. To perform my desire. So God has ordained and decreed Cyrus, and he will do two things. Number one, concerning Jerusalem, she will be built. And concerning the temple, the second temple, the foundation will be laid. So that's very good right there after this chapter to read Ezra and Nehemiah. I'm going to read something from Josephus, only telling you page, not page 186. Was not page 76. Josephus just wanted to show you this, that when Daniel in Babylon, okay, you don't need to note all this, at the latter part of the life of Daniel in Babylon, when they return here, that's the passage that Daniel would have read to Cyrus and prompt him to decide these things. It's just to show you, Cyrus was a Sadducee. He wrote in the year 75, between 75 and 80 of this era. He was an eyewitness, Flavius Josephus, he was an eyewitness of AD 70, the destruction of the temple. I read for you, okay, that passage from book 11. This is Antiquities of the Jews. I read that here. I'm just going to skip a few things. In the first year of the reign of Cyrus, it's not Bible. He was not a believer in Jesus, the Sadducee here, which was the 70th from the day that our people were removed of their own land into Babylon. God commiserated the captivity and calamity these poor people, according as he had foretold to them by Jeremiah the prophet before the destruction of the city, that after they had served Nebuchadnezzar and his posterity, and after they had undergone that servitude 70 years, he would restore them again to the land of their fathers, and they should build their temple and enjoy their ancient prosperity. And these things God afford them, because he stirred up the mind of Cyrus and made him write these throughout all Asia. Thus said Cyrus the king, since God Almighty has appointed me to be king of the inhabitable earth, and I believe that he is that God which the nation of the Israelites worship, for indeed he foretold my name by the prophets, and that I should build him a house at Jerusalem in the country of Judea. So he was shown, Isaiah, 150 years prior to existence. This was known to Cyrus by his reading of the book which is Isaiah left behind him of his prophecies. For this prophet said that God has spoken thus to him in a secret vision. Quote, my will is that Cyrus, whom I have appointed to be king over many and great nations, send back my people to their own land and build my temple. This was foretold by Isaiah 140 years before the temple was demolished. Accordingly, when Cyrus read this and admired the divine power, an earnest desire and ambition seized upon him, Cyrus, to fulfill what was so written. So he called for the most eminent Jews that were in Babylon, Daniel and his friends, and said to them that he have gave them to leave to go back to their own country. There you go. That's exactly what you are studying in the book of Flavius Josephus. Spectacular. Only discrepancy here, 140 years, 150, doesn't matter. That's exactly what you're studying right now. So when Dan in the Babylon captivity said, hey, Cyrus, look, and his name is written in the book, it stirred the heart. Of course it's God. Because if he read a book and the heart is stirred, that's the word of Jehovah. Okay, I'll accomplish this. Goosebumps right now on my own. But before I cannot take you only there, we need to build the case. We should be flat-faced right now.
Yeah.
Love it. She didn't call back, it means that she's in. I'm done.
What's the name of that book again?
I can show you. This is Josephus. There is a modern version. This one is the dry. And even before this,
What part did you read out of it?
I read about, no, it's divided by book. It was, it's chapter 9. No. It's book 11.
Book 11.
Chapter 1. And it's divided by verses 1, 2, and 3, I think I read. And that's how he would look like. This is a painting of a... He was an eyewitness. Here, Sylvie. This man was an eyewitness. He was a Sadducee by persuasion. And he witnessed ID 70, and it's a tool. I don't lend it because I constantly have to go back to it for the life of the Messiah. And he is an unbeliever in the life of Christ, but he reports the Messiah. And there is 2 books here. You have Antiquity of the Jews, which is the most quoted, and you have War of the Jews in 1 volume. Very dry reading, very hard to read. Right on, we take lowercase b, the message to Cyrus right now, okay? The message to him right now. Visualize your passage. It's 45 verses 1 to 7. When I read this a while ago and I highlighted, because that's why it was hiding there, I was supposed to read that to you last week. When I come across that kind of piece of information, I'm blown away. Confirmation to me over and over again of the authenticity of that book. It's fabulous. I love it. Beautiful. In chapter 44, verses 24 to 28, God told us about Cyrus. It's behind us. Now he speaks to Cyrus directly. Cyrus is not there, but you just witnessed this. Now he speaks to Cyrus directly. 150 years before. Verse 1. Thus says Jehovah to Cyrus his anointed, whom I have taken by the right hand to subdue nations before him, Cyrus, and to loose the loins of kings, to open doors before him so that gates will not be shut. Circle the word anointed, and we'll do by verse here. He calls Cyrus his anointed, and you can replace the word by his Messiah. I'm glad not to have arguments right now.
Yeah.
While Messiah, Jesus, here, the real Messiah, Christ Jesus, the Son of God, will bring here spiritual deliverance from Israel. Cyrus is a type of the Messiah who will bring physical deliverance only. So it's typology here. Nothing in the realm of the spiritual. Keep in mind that one thing that is kind of that will make it even easier to digest right now. I told you that in the past. You can make a verb with Messiah, because a Messiah is an anointed one. And any time that the king in 1st and 2nd King was anointed with the will of God, he was basically, you can put the word here, he was Messiahed, the anointed. Okay? But there is only one anointed of God in the sense of closeness and being God himself, and that's Christ Jesus. It's not debatable. So while the true Messiah, Jesus, will bring through deliverance, spiritual deliverance and physical deliverance also for Israel, Cyrus becomes a type. He will deliver them physically only. In verse 1 until the first part of verse 3, you can call it 3a, he describes God's work on behalf of Cyrus. In verse 1 to verse 3a, which is, I will give you the treasures of darkness and hidden wealth of secret places, you can draw a pencil line. Basically, God describes, or the prophet describes God's work on behalf of Cyrus, what he will do for Cyrus, and he basically says three things. Number 1, verse 1, to subdue nations before him and to loose the loins of kings, to open door before him so that gates will not be shut. Simply put, he will smooth the way of Cyrus, leading him, Cyrus, to victory. He will take cities hard to take.
Okay, God will smooth the way for Cyrus.
For his victories, for Cyrus's victories, if you want to put it this way. He will make it easy. God will make it easy for him. He will subject in front of Cyrus cities that are very hard to conquer. We have lots of history on it. Here, I'm going to give you just a snapshot of it. He took the city. Who is he? Cyrus. He took a city called, that you know the name of that. He took a city called Sardis. In 547 BC. It was called the Battle of Thymbra. If you Google these things just for fun, it was called the Battle of Thymbra. And he conquered Sardis. He took the city of Sardis with ease. while other king of the time tried it and failed to do so. That's my point number 1 here. Point number 2 is in verse 2, where he says, I will shatter the doors of bronze and cut through their iron bars. Circle the expression doors of bronze. A Greek historian of 400 BC wrote that Babylon had 100 gates around the city made of brass. Very, very fortified city. There is a Greek historian that lives in 400 BC, wrote that the city of Babylon was surrounded by 100 brass gates and doors. And it never stopped Cyrus' divine intervention. Number 3 is in verse 3. Do I need to repeat something there, Vicky? Because I can see you still writing. Tell me if you, okay? Number 3, the treasures, it's in verse 3. Look, I will give you the treasures of darkness, circle treasures of darkness, and hidden wealth of secret places. Circle wealth of secret places, so that you may know that it is I. I don't want this so that may know that it is I right now. This is a promise here that Cyrus will conquer over a fellow called Croesus. C-R-O-E-S-U-S. Sardis will conquer these guys. This guy here, Croesus. Croesus of Libya. Croesus of Libya. Lydia, sorry. Lydia. From the Lydian Empire. This person, Croesus, here was known for his wealth. He was known for his wealth, and this is from him. He was so wealthy that we got the proverb here that everything you touch, that everything that he touched turned into gold. Look at this. This is the advertising for Midas, the repair, Midas. You have seen the golden retriever in that advertising, the tires and the toolbox becoming gold. It comes straight from here. And Midas is one of the names for the gods of the Medo-Persian Empire. So that's why the advertising that everything the Midas touched turned into gold, the drum breaks and so on, comes from that place. Croesus had his headquarters in Sardis. And what he did, he was hiding his treasure underground in secret dark places. So when Cyrus conquered Sardis, he obtained the wealth of Croesus, here billions of dollars at that time. He became exceedingly wealthy. Cyrus the Great. So basically in verse 2, with the conquering of the 100 gates, it's a promise that he would conquer Babylon. So simply put verse 2, conquering, promise of conquering Babylon, and verse 3, the promise of conquering Lydia.
city partying.
This is a relationship to that.
That they didn't secure the gates.
You got it. You got it. Same. That's the intervention of God to give the Cyrus. So these two major empires that I just named to you, Babylon, that he will conquer here, and what was the other one? I have a blank right now. Yeah, Lydia. These two major empires right now became Medo-Persia. It completes basically our study of Daniel. So because of Cyrus conquered, this is a city here, and Cyrus is the one that conquered that city, hence taking the wealth of Croesus. So that's why now the Babylonian Empire come to an end, and then what kicks in right now is the Medo-Persian Empire from your study of Daniel.
What's that second one? L-I-D-Y-N?
L-I-D, Lydia. I'm wrong? Oh, yeah, I realize that. No, I constantly do these mistakes with the IY type of thing. This one I have right, Croesus. It's Croesus. This is kind of a very mild E type of thing. Okay, so.
So that's spelled wrong?
Pardon me? No, it's spelled correct. We say Croesus. The E is very.
Oh, so,
The emphasis is on the
okay.
Croesus.
Yeah, the Germans still use that OE sounds like an A almost.
That's it, yeah. Okay. So two major empire right now, because remember that Cyrus is Persian and Medes, and he will be the king of the Medo-Persian Empire. It's easy in your mind, I hope. I will pause right now. It's easy in our mind, because right now, follow me, it's not in my notes right now, we're studying the end of the Babylonian Empire. The times of the Gentiles, once again using my board here, the time of the Gentiles, you know it by heart, started in the year 586 BC with the conquer of the city with Nebuchadnezzar and the destruction of the temple. But there was 3 deportations. So 586 BC, the temple, number 1, was destroyed, and then the Jews went into the Babylonian captivity. That was the beginning of the time of the Gentiles. And now Cyrus from the Medo-Persian Empire will allow the Jews to go back. Okay? Medo-Persian Empire. And then after the Medo-Persian Empire, it's going to be the Hellenistic Empire, Alexander the Great. And then the Roman Empire for the time of Christ. Does it make some sense to you?
Yeah. And he was that rich because of what he'd taken over.
Oh,
he could let the Jews take back all their treasures and provide for them to build.
It's an absolute. The wealth of the temple in comparison to what Croesus had hidden in the ground here is incomparable, except that the vessels of the temple are holy. But he became very wealthy. And Babylon was wealthy too. So, okay, we pause.